first word that I think most of us can relate to is the word stuck, is being stuck in our lives, watching yourself live patterns, whether or not they're in your daily behaviors or patterns in your thinking mind, or just being stuck in certain specific feelings. Maybe a lot of us do, logically, we're insightful. Maybe a lot of us have been in treatment, in therapy, and we might know a way out or think we know a way out, yet we still feel stuck. I felt that my whole life, having clocked many hours in my individual work before I shifted the way I practice, but with individual patients, clients, same thing, that word would come up time and time again.
You felt stuck? Or you mean your client?
I feel stuck. I had maybe thought I had the tools to change, thought I had the insight to change, couldn't implement them.
And you're a therapist.
And I'm a therapist. Now fast forward, I'm seeing the same stories coming in week after week with my clients, quite literally the same stories. Here's the issue I had with my partner. Okay, we'll explore it insightfully. Maybe we'll even come up with a game plan of how to choose a new response in this future fight that, of course, is going to happen. Flash forward to that next week, same fight, Groundhog's Day, verbatim.
So you would give, because I hear this in therapy a lot. It's like, okay, when there's a breakdown or a fight, the therapist will give a tool to try to like diffuse the fight, or to say, okay, let's take 10 seconds of a breathing together, or let's step out of the room and then come back together when we're calm.
We love our timeouts.
Whatever it is, right? There's like different tools you can use in an argument or a fight with a loved one or a friend or anything like that. But why don't they seem to work most of the time? Why is it? Why don't they work?
When we're having that conversation about what to do next, we're in a part of our brain where consciousness lives. This is where we can be separate from ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, where I do my little like spotlight, where we're like this little observational spotlight of ourselves. We have access to logic, to long-term planning. You know, that's the part of our brain that makes us human, this ability to be conscious, to observe ourselves, to think about thought. Beautiful, empowering gift that we have.
But we're not able to do that in a stressful moment?
Yes, those are the moments that we're having this conversation. So a lot of therapy sessions take place very consciously. We're here, calm, right? The ambiance of most therapy rooms is very calming.
Incense.
You know, we're in that nice balanced place, and so we get it. But you're right, when we get into the moments where we need to use it, we're now functioning from a lower part of our brain called the subconscious, which is part of our past. I talk a lot about the subconscious as the means in which we literally carry our past, where all of our wounds live, and what causes those emotional reactions. So even if I know what I'm gonna do differently, we're gonna, hey, you're my partner, and we love this idea of timeout. So when things get escalated, we're gonna time out. Chances are when an emotion is touched in one or both of us, we're shifting right back down to that emotional lower center of our brain, and that's going to dictate what we do. And we're probably going to do the same things that we always do when we're upset.
React, scream, fight,
yell, run away, tantrum, I dissociate. I love that one myself.
So, is that what you do?
I used to be the queen. I used to call it my spaceship. I used to go away, and I got very good at not appearing away. So I could still continue, but emotionally I was so disconnected from myself, the moment, my feelings.
So you would be there, you'd be physically there, but not emotionally or mentally.
There.
You would just disconnect emotionally.
Disconnect. So I'd be, very, very calm talking or an appearance because I
don't care.
Down here there might have been a whole multitude of feelings bubbling up, but that was too much, too overwhelming.
So so these tools can only work to a certain point, it seems like, based on your experience of working with a lot of people one-on-one and seeing them come back. Okay, we tried timeout, we tried this. So it seems like they only work to a certain point of our ability to be conscious of the moment, right?
Yes.
Is that true?
Consciousness is where we are granted choice. Otherwise, that subconscious is going to run those same patterns, behavioral, emotional.
And it's almost like we have no choice.
We have no choice. We're disempowered. You'll hear me often talk about we become reactive to the environment. We live a reactive life toward the environment, as in things happen in our world, and I only react in the same way, typically. And it makes us feel very powerless, very victimized. We are a victim of circumstance in that way.
So how do we change that? Powerless feeling that,
We have to practice consciousness. We really have to. Change begins when you practice being conscious, practice showing up, practice observing yourself, practice observing all of the patterns.
Not just when it's calm, but when it's chaotic.
I actually don't suggest you begin to practice when it's chaotic. Practice when it's calm.
Got you.
So that you can practice when it's chaotic.
So give me an example, like when it's calm, how would you be responding in a certain way of love or peace as opposed to hysteria?
Yeah.
What would that be like?
I reframed that because I think it's really important important. And
If you're not being triggered, then how do you practice?
Exactly. And a lot of us wait because, I only have an issue when I'm triggered.
Right.
So I'm going to wait to use this new tool then. So we can't just wait till then because we're not going to use something new then. We're going to do the thing that was familiar then. So I really am, I harbor on the point of consistency and of just developing a consistent practice of what we're talking about now, of consciousness all of the time, so that when you really need to be observational of yourself, to see why, that dish that was left out was so incensing.
It's a trigger.
Right? And to create that space then so that dish can still be there. I still can feel incensed by it because that doesn't go away right away. But I might not throw it at my partner or knock it on the floor. I might choose a different response. So it's really a gradual evolution. But it starts by practicing consistently all of the time, starting in small moments, of course, because I'm the biggest believer in too much change too quickly overwhelms a system.
Right.
So your intention isn't going to be, I'm completely unconscious, so now I'm just going to start being completely conscious starting tomorrow. No,
it's not going to happen.
You're going to start to be conscious in one moment in your day for a good long string of days, and then maybe you're going to try to do it for 2 moments in your day, and then 3.
I tell you, my girlfriend moved in a couple months ago, and I'm so used to a certain routine every single day of the way I like things, right? And so when she moved in with our dog, it was like I had to learn so many new ways of living in my space and our space now. And I love to make the bed right away, right after I get up. She gets up, I get up early and I go to the gym, and I like to make my bed right away. She likes to sleep in a little longer and doesn't like to make the bed as quickly. And I had to learn, because we were making the bed quickly, and then it's like not being made.
Making the bed over top of her.
I know, I want to be, but I had to just learn to accept certain changes without reacting and being like, okay, even though I'm used to a certain way all the time, am I okay with not doing this or it not being done the way I want it to be now that I'm in a new relationship? And I've been able to observe and practice without getting upset or without getting mad, being like, okay, this is how it's going to be, and if I want it to be done a certain way, I can make a request, I can wait till she wakes up, and then I can do it myself, or whatever it may be. We can create some new type of relationship around it, but I need to be willing to evolve and change as well, where I'm not always going to get everything that I want all the time in an intimate relationship. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. You also highlighted something very real, which is that it doesn't mean that right away you're right on board.
Right.
Right away you might wish that she was up and your bed was
Yes.
made, and that's okay. We shame ourselves as humans because if we have that old reaction or assign that old meaning, immediately we become shameful. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't. It doesn't matter. We're going to have those thoughts. They're going to stick around for a while. We're going to have those feelings even. They're going to stick around for a while. But we can start to create new choices.
Yes.
And we don't have to feel badly, about desiring to live those old familiar patterns. It's actually part of being human.
I feel like I'm so proud of myself the last few months because my girlfriend moved in and it was stressful. For the first couple months, there was so many beautiful days, but then there was things that would trigger her that then would trigger me. And
Which is
cause
typically
these
how it
arguments.
happens in couples.
And she's a passionate Latina and she likes things her way too. So I remember just thinking to myself, I could easily go back into a pattern of trauma, resentment, feeling abused, not feeling a sense of fairness, whatever my childhood traumas were. And there were a couple times where I did argue from that place. And I realized this is not going to work. If I come from this place, this relationship will not thrive. And I'm not saying it's okay for her to come from that place, so we're working on things together. But I just realized, is it better for me to be right and try to prove my point and argue something, or is it better to just listen, love, come from a place of peace in that moment, and then reflect and talk about it later, the next day? Even though I want answers now, I want to resolve this right now, here's why I'm right, I want to defend my point, but it's been a beautiful shift in my partner since I've been doing that, and just letting my ego go of needing to be a writer of a certain situation. It's amazing. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's amazing the amount of love. And I automatically switch to appreciation. Right when there's a trigger or something, I'm just I appreciate you so much. You're right about that. I'm going to work on this more. Even if she's not 100% right, I'm just you're right about this, and I can empathize with this. And it's been incredible. It's so hard to do unless you practice. And so what I do every morning is I just shower with appreciation when it's calm. And I'm already in that
really
mode. And I just think that's a game changer. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out and I have this like perfect relationship, but I hear so many people in relationships who struggle. And I asked them, I was like, when's the last time you texted what you appreciate about them?
Yeah.
Or when's the
Instead
last
of
time?
just a litany of what isn't appreciated or what could be done differently. Well, you said two really, I think, beautiful pieces in that, which is that, I mean, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge you, Lewis, because you changed, right? You didn't yet say partner change.
Right.
You said, I'm going to experiment with how I can have a new relationship with this experience so I can do differently. And a lot of us, when there's discomfort or conflict in a relationship, we do very quickly.
Want the other person to change,
This
right?
is back to that reactive way of living, right? If the environment is affecting me negatively, that we were describing earlier, right? So if you're my partner and you are the environment that's affecting me negatively, please change so that I can now feel better. But change comes within. I mean, so that was very beautiful, is that you owned the responsibility. I think there's also something to be said about this concept of right and wrong. I mean, not to go all esoteric, but we can make an argument for days about this concept of right. Is there anything right? And you said something beautiful. It's not necessarily a fight. We can shift from a need to be right or wrong to just an attempt to understand.
That's it. And empathize with where the person's coming from.
Where they're coming from, why they
way.
see that perspective that they are. What about, and something else I think that is beautiful is your realization that somewhere wrapped up in here was that past that was very painful for you, but very much alive in this moment. It doesn't mean that this moment embodied the past in an objective way. It just means that it triggered that part of you that remembers that past.
Right.
So very, really beautiful. I mean, I love that illustration because I think that really touches on the work that needs, or that we can all do for ourselves in our practice.
I'm just practicing, like, I'm doing things I normally wouldn't do, but also the things I normally wouldn't do have never fully worked for me in a relationship. You know, I'm always used to doing things my way because this is who I am, and don't change me, and don't try to, exactly, right? And now I'm just like, okay, even though it may seem a little more time to do this thing, or a little more effort here, or to sacrifice something else in my life to cultivate this over here, if that's what I'm calling it, a sacrifice. It's just by doing and experimenting these things, even though I was resistant to them in the first couple months, I'm like, do I really need to go do this thing in my life that I did all the time that wasn't really adding value, or is spending that extra 10 minutes cultivating this relationship more meaningful? And so it's just shifting the awareness of my life about what I thought I wanted to what's actually more valuable. So, not to go off on this, but I feel like what I wanted to talk about is people practicing when you're not in conflict. And the reason why tools don't work is because I don't think people are practicing enough when there's not trauma or stressful moments. And is there anything else that could, I guess, make the tools work except for conscious practicing? I guess it's also healing your traumas, but how do we start to heal those traumas?
Well, that's it, actually. So the way I think about a healing journey, I kind of build it into a foundational pyramid, if you will, right? With the bottom layer being our physiological body, our nervous system included. Because to speak to your point that you're very beautifully alluding to, which is that we carry dysregulations, physiological imbalances, nervous system dysregulation.
What's the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
Body Keeps the Score.
I've never read it, but I hear it's great.
Yeah, it's really anyone reading it's dense scientifically, so I know it can kind of dissuade people away from it because it's an incredibly pivotal, impactful book, and I definitely suggest people give it a shot, but I know that it can be pretty dense.
But the overall
premise is that trauma is stored in the body.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that most of us have some degree of a traumatic experience in our past. I'm a big believer in expanding the definition of trauma beyond the big T, the way we typically think about it.
It doesn't need to be a physical trauma. It can be emotional, psychological.
Oftentimes it's emotional, it's interpersonal, it's not feeling seen, not feeling loved, not feeling accepted as the authentic being that we are by typically our earliest relationships, our caregivers, our schools, our things like that.
Our best friends or whatever.
Yeah, so expanding trauma, I mean, I throw the net quite wide. Like I really have yet to meet people that don't tick some of the boxes that are, in my opinion, traumatic
What's the greatest
experiences.
trauma most people face or feel now?
I think not feeling significant, not feeling authentic in themselves, which began not feeling seen and authentic as a separate being in their earliest relationships. I think we all carry a version of that.
Really?
Because it's incredibly difficult for a human to show up for another human, an infant, their infant. So because we're modeling things directly, indirectly. So any conflicts, any struggles, any imbalances, any conditionings that's not so positive that caregivers, that parents have struggled with probably is going to be modeled in the exact same way. And this is where intergenerational patterns happen. If you look back in your families, you'll see the same sort of patterns, as you start to become conscious and as you start to observe these.
That your parents and their parents did this to them, and their parents did this to them.
Right. And if you really want to go into the physiological layer that we're talking about now, I mean, you were grown, right, as a baby, as an embryo in a body, right? So that human's body that's housing this little developing fetus is in some version of physical regulation or dysregulation. Right, so if you really want to go back, these imbalances are affecting you in development. So then you come out, and then all of your body and how it functions is affected by the food you eat, by the choices you make in terms of how much sleep you get, how do you handle stress. Essentially, what you do all day is going to affect whether your body is regulated or not.
If you're looking for more greatness in your life, make sure to check out this video right here. And also check out our free PDF, The 3 Secrets to Unlock the Power of Your Mind to help you change your life. Download it right here.
We have these strong theories. It's just the science suggests they're wrong. It's not like we're not putting the work in. We're putting the work in the wrong stuff.